Hello, this is Reptiles, and today I'm going to be setting up a small 5-gallon tank for my baby crested geckos. So I'll be showing you how I'm setting up everything, and I'll be talking about this tank and what it was used for before, and all of the requirements and everything like that. So I hope you guys enjoy and learn what you're looking for. So here we have a 5-gallon aquarium. Now it's decked out with a custom background that I built quite a while ago, and I'll talk about how I got this tank and how I did the background and everything, and I will put a video in somewhere that I actually did the background in because I have a video for that. So here, if you're not aware of my crested geckos, we have Teddy in here somewhere, and she is the female, so she is right back there on the end, my finger there. She's back there, and she was actually housed in this tank when she was about 0.21 ounces. So right when she was little, I got her. Now my brother gave her to me, but that's because he lives in another state. He couldn't take care of her anymore, and he had just bought her, and then I took her in type of thing. And then here we have a 5-gallon tank that came with her, and it was set up bioactively, but like real crappily. Like it just wasn't very good. And then he had some type of weird stuff going on the back. He had like duct tape on it and stuff. It was bad. So I did this background. So this is expanding foam, then black or brown silicone, and then substrate on the back there. And like I said, I've done videos on that before, so I will put those and link those all over everywhere, probably in the description and stuff like that. So that is what's going on here. It has a little pot area for you can see the expanding foam back here, but that is not like a hide or anything. It's actually just going to be filled with dirt. And she was in here. Now she's now grown up. I've mated her with Linus, who's down there, and now we have babies. So these were kind of surprise babies because they incubated in her enclosure. So here we have them, and they're still very small, as you can see. This one's name is Chris. This is Christopher. And then the other one is somewhere here, probably, maybe. It's right here. So it is right there. And they're both really pretty and way prettier than Teddy, to be honest. But they're really cool, and I'm going to be keeping them. So right now they're still very small. So they're 0.7 ounces, about 1/3 of what she was when I got her. And just real small babies. I mean, they're not real small babies. They're just real small because they're babies. And that's kind of what you're going to get if you get a baby, but you're probably going to get something more like 0.21 ounces, something like that. I don't know ounces to grams exactly, and I don't know what common gram weights are because I haven't been using grams to weigh everybody, but that's, I just know ounces right now. So just, you can convert that just to grams, and it'll probably make more sense. Everybody tends to use grams with these guys. So here we have the 5-gallon tank, and I put Teddy in it, as I said, and she did pretty well in here. Now, people didn't exactly like that I used a 5-gallon or a bioactive terrarium because a baby's too small, I guess. But she did perfectly fine. She grew up perfectly fine. She's healthy enough to have babies. She's good. And these guys I don't want to add into this tank, but the thing is I already have the plants and all the materials, so I'm just going to go ahead and set it up, and then once they get bigger, I'll eventually add them in here because right now it's easy enough to keep them in here, but the problem is they actually defecate quite a bit, like more than I expected, so that's why I want to get them into a bioactive enclosure as soon as they start growing and getting bigger and stuff. So here we have the plants, so I'm just going to go ahead plant this up with pothos. We have this soil that I'm going to use. This is like strictly basically soil with activated carbon mixed in with it, so that'll help keep the soil from stagnating, and it'll like prevent smells and different things like that. It'll do really well. So now I'm going to be talking about bioactive tanks. So I haven't been very good at bioactive tanks, to be honest. I haven't mastered the drainage layer. So in this tank I tried to use rocks, and as you can see, this tank's been set up for a long time. This is Darwin's tank, and she is somewhere. She's right there in that leaf. So she's a big female. She is quite plump. She's gonna lay eggs soon. But anyway, this soil has basically stagnated. It's not doing so well. There's a ton of isopods. The isopods have overtaken everything and just not doing real well because I didn't do a proper drainage layer. I actually used stones, which made this extraordinarily heavy. So I am going to be upgrading these guys and changing stuff, but so that's why I haven't messed with changing it up right now or anything. So that's kind of the deal with her tank. And then the other ones, I use clay pebbles. So as you can see, clay pebbles, but I didn't use any mesh. So over here, we have some mesh, and that's what we're going to be using today, clay pebbles and proper mesh. Now this is just landscaping fabric or like landscaping mesh, and that's what I'm going to be using. Now it kind of seems a little bit water resistant when you put water directly on it, but water will seep through it and it'll be alright. So that's what happened here, that's what happened in my leopard gecko's tank, that's what happened in Linus's tank. Not real good. So we're going to do it correctly this time, and we're going to use liner. Now liner isn't a problem, and this isn't a problem because these guys aren't diggers, especially the babies. The babies aren't going to dig. She will because they're going to lay eggs, but in their future enclosures it won't be a problem, and I'm not even going to use this method. I'm going to use egg crate. So that is the plan. Okay, here is a brick of Eco Earth. This is one of the smaller ones, and I'm going to attempt to kind of break it in half, maybe. I think I need something to do that, but I don't need a whole lot of it, so I'm not going to get a whole lot of it. So I found that the easiest way to do it is to break it off long ways, and this might not look like much, but I'm going to go add some warm water, and then this will expand a whole lot into a nice bunch of substrate. Okay, so I just put in a bunch of water, and that gives it the ability to soak it up and expand, which is what Eco Earth does, or cocoa fiber bedding. And then I have some leftover sphagnum moss from other projects. I'm going to take a handful of that and throw that in here. And then I'm going to get these plants out of this container right here, and then I'll just go ahead and dump this dirt in. So these have quite extensive roots, at least a lot of them do. They were grown in water for a long time, and there might be some soil mites, and it looks like there's a good group of springtails that have managed their way in here. So I'm not very fond of animals that I haven't added myself, but soil mites and springtails have popped up in my terrariums, and you know, they're not harmful. In fact, they're helpful. So I'm just I'm just gonna let them be. So here we have the 5 gallon. I'm gonna add in some of the, I guess, the hydro balls or clay balls or whatever. Now it's not uber deep, but I think this will be pretty good, and it'll be really interesting for me to see how everything interacts with this, because I haven't done a proper drainage layer with clay balls before. I've never managed it. I've refused to use the mesh, and if you don't use the mesh, then the dirt's just gonna seep down and get all in between, and then you just, it's pointless after that. So it's really, like, you need to use the mesh. Okay, so what you want is it to be a little bit bigger, not too much, but just enough to kind of, so the soil kind of sits in almost, to kind of push it to the edge, make sure it doesn't get down into the substrate. Okay, so now I should simply be able to get my soil in. Okay, so I kind of want to place this quite intentionally to prevent the thing from moving, so I will go ahead and try to do that. And then we're going to start planting real quick. So we'll grab some of these big plants. And I think these will kind of take over this terrarium, create lots of foliage for these animals, and it'll be really cool. And now we just got to kind of escape the substrate area. Okay, so here we have it. And as you can see, there is in fact a load of substrate. And I just went ahead and added this piece. It's pretty cool. It's just something for the soil, insects, and microfauna to interact with and break down and stuff. And then here we have what I use as a water ball in one of my larger enclosures, and it's covered in springtails. So I'm going to kind of wash it out if I can with my spray bottle real quick. But what this will be good for is a water ball. So you don't actually have to add in a water ball with the Crested Gecko if you spray it down. But I've noticed that maybe if the Crested Geckos had the opportunity, they would drink out of water ball. So I'd like to give them that opportunity, and I'd also like to keep it natural without having to have like an unrealistic or unnatural water bowl. So I can just add in parts of coconut to do that, and they work just fine, and then they fill up with water whenever I spray down, and then it gives the animals opportunity. Now what I was thinking is, if I end up being able to keep this aloe vera in here, what it'll do, just like a bromeliad, is it'll kind of fill up with water on places, and then hopefully the geckos can kind of utilize that. But if I can't, then that's fine, and I hope to actually be able to utilize proper bromeliads in the future as well. So besides this, now I just need to add leaves and botanicals, but unfortunately I don't have those right now, so I will have to add those once I can. Okay, so now I can finish this up by adding in leaves, and I have a whole bunch. I just boiled them, and it's just a big mix of, I guess, deciduous leaves that have been sanitized from outside. So we have like maple, there's some ornamental pear, and some from a bush. I don't know, I'm not sure of all of them, and oak leaves as well. I tend to use oak leaves a lot, but this time I kind of just grabbed a ton and went for it. So I'll put all those in here, and I think that'll make it look a whole lot better. There's also some duckweed on some of them because I collected some of them from the top of my pond. I have a small turtle pond for my turtles, and it was filling up with leaves. So I figured I'd get them out, and I figured I would just go ahead and use those to sanitize. So we're going to get it out of the bowl here. So this creates extra hiding places if they choose to hide down there, but more likely they'll probably go up in the pothos leaves and hide up there, but this gives them options. Okay, so I also sanitized just a piece of wood, and I'm going to put this in here, and this will give them a cool area to kind of walk on and stuff, and a little bit kind of more vertical area. That was kind of the plan with this, and I think I'm just going to set it down in here, and that should look pretty decent. It's not amazing, it kind of just looks pretty basic, but that's alright. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think that looks pretty interesting. So now you have a little bioactive terrarium. And that is it. To complete the guide, you have to feed them like every other day. You can feed them like Pangea or Rapashi, just a Crested Gecko diet. I feed mine that along with dubia roaches that I put into a container in the tank every other day. And then I just use the mesh lid, but then I also use a piece of plexiglass to make sure I hold a lot more humidity, because they do better in higher humidity. And that's pretty much it. That's how you care for these guys. And then they won't be in here forever, obviously. They'll grow out of this relatively quickly, and then I'll move them on to something else. You don't want to keep babies in tanks like this because they're very prone to eating substrate, and that can really kill them. So you don't want that. So as far as small juveniles, this would work great. So hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, like it down below. If you have any comments or concerns, in the comments below. And if for more content, then subscribe.